What is up, Starseeds? It's Sid, and today we are going to be talking about pyramids, their correlation to Orion's belt in particular, but actually the whole Orion constellation, and their correlations to each other. Now, this is going to be a fun video, kind of a simplified version of what I've been researching lately. I've been getting more into, obviously, the math behind the Great Pyramid. That was my last video. I've been looking into pyramids around the world, which, by the way, there's over 1,000. So today we're going to be talking about three main pyramid areas: the Great Pyramids of Giza, the pyramids in Teotihuacan, Mexico, the Pyramid of the Sun, the Moon, the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, as well as the pyramids in China, the Xi'an pyramid. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. But China is kind of keeping those pyramids more on the down low. Like the Great White Pyramid, the biggest pyramid there in Xi'an, it's bigger than the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. Because if you remember in my last video, the length of the base of the Great Pyramid, it's about 230 meters on each side, okay? If we go to Teotihuacan in Mexico, the Pyramid of the Sun, it's about 225 meters long, the base of it. That's very close. That's approximately 5 meters off. Billy Carson likes to say they're the same length. He also likes to say that the Pyramid of the Sun is half the height of the Great Pyramid, but once again, if you do some simple searching, that's not the exact case. It's in the ballpark range of half of the height of the Great Pyramid, so I'll give them that. There might be some sacred geometry or ratios if we look into it, and that might be even cooler than being half the size of it. Anyways, getting back to the size ratios, the Great White Pyramid, the tallest one in Xi'an, it is over 600 meters long, you guys. In comparison to 225, 230, 600. It's over twice as big. This is alleged, though. This is what researchers estimate, which I feel like researchers can estimate pretty darn good. It's often described as being about 600 meters long and about 300 meters high, whereas the Pyramid of the Sun is 65 meters high and the Pyramid of Giza is 146.6 meters tall. That's just the size ratios. Am I totally skipping over the fact that they literally look like Orion's belt lined up? All of them have biggest pyramid, next biggest pyramid, very close in size, this one just slightly smaller, and then the third one off over here. Not in a diagonal line like you would kind of expect it to be, and much smaller. It doesn't fit this pattern that we have going here. It's different. I'm no electrician or whatever, but there's also depictions of it looking like a circuit board, as well as the main depiction being that it looks like Orion's belt. Now, this theory was first pointed out by Robert Bauval. He was actually born in Alexandria, Egypt in 1948. His father was Belgian, his mother was Italian, Maltese, and he actually ended up living in England. I feel like outside of the US, it's so much more common for people to just move around and be these different nationalities and be born in this place, but then live in another place. Anyways, he was a construction engineer. The story goes that he was at an airport in London, England, and he was waiting for his plane. He was reading this book that I actually have. I have it in my closet. I have not read it yet, but it's called The Serious Mystery. It's by another Robert. It's by Robert Temple, and it was published in 1976. So this occurred sometime between 1976 and 1982 when he read this book, loved it, loved the concept, really sparked his mind. And mind you, he's from Alexandria, Egypt. He's familiar with the area, but this book just got him a little bit more into it and curious about it. So in 1982, he visits the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, and he noticed this photo taken from an airplane of this obviously bird's eye view of the Great Pyramids blown up in large. And he wondered, why are there 3 pyramids? Why not 1, 2, 4, 5? Like, why are there 3 Great Pyramids? Because obviously there's a ton more pyramids around in the area, but there's these 3 massive ones right here, almost in a diagonal line. But looking at this picture, he's like, why is that one so much smaller? Why is it, slightly off kilter? And also, why even in the same dynasty, like the same bloodline, did these sons, these pharaohs, not build their pyramids by their fathers? They built them in these other weird areas. Why? Then during a business trip to Saudi Arabia, he gets to go on this like desert safari. Him and his French friend, who's very into astronomy, go for a walk at night. And his friend points out these stars, the Orion Belt stars, Alnitak, El-Nilam, and Mintanka. And Robert Bauval is like, oh my gosh, I see the Great Pyramids of Giza in the sky right now. And the dude is like, no, those are the stars in Orion. Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, no, they look exactly like the Great Pyramids. I'm from Egypt. I know this. I've seen them. I read books about it. Like, I'm curious about it. I'm looking at the sky right now and I'm telling you, like, that is how the Great Pyramids are lined out. So he obviously looks into this further. He goes on to write a book about it. He calls it the Orion Mystery, very similar to the Sears Mystery title, but hey, let's go with it. Makes this book called The Orion Mystery, published it in 1994. I also have this book sitting in my closet, probably right next to the Serious Mystery book. Have not read either of them yet, but I am so super duper excited to, and best believe I'm probably going to film videos on this topic more in depth once I learn more about it, but I had to just hop on here and tell you guys at least the basics of what I've been researching lately. I've known this information for a while, but the details about Robert Bauval, I just found out. I didn't know that I had a book written by him, and I didn't know that I had the book that inspired him to look more into it, possibly prompting him to eventually write that book. He does more research. He realizes that Alnitak is Khufu, El-Nilam is Khafre, and Mintanka is Menkure. Those also, kind of interestingly enough, the two A names correspond to the two K names, and the M name corresponds to the M name. That is kind of interesting if you think about it. But Robert also noticed that the Milky Way galaxy really corresponds to the Nile River if you look at Egypt as this map of the heavens, okay? In relationship to the Great Pyramids, that's where the Nile River is. Same ratio as in relationship to the Orion's belt as the Milky Way galaxy is allegedly. Like that kind of serpenty, riverish type shape of the Milky Way galaxy that we see when looking at the sky. Also, I'm kind of curious myself. When I think of a river, I think of like the Eridanus River constellation, and it is kind of under Orion too, so I wonder if that comes into play. Like I said, I need to do some more research on this topic, but it's not just the Great Pyramids and the Nile River, it's not just the Belt Stars and the Milky Way, or possibly my theory, Eridanus River, who knows. He also found that Bellatrix corresponds to a pyramid, and Syath corresponds to a pyramid in this Giza Plateau region. I'm curious to see if Rigel or if Betelgeuse or these other stars correspond to anything else in the Giza Plateau, because the ancient Egyptians called the Orion constellation Sahu, and Sahu is associated with Osiris. We know how much ancient Egyptians love their god of the dead, Osiris, okay? Osiris is associated with Orion because he's Sahu, and the goddess Isis is correlated to Sirius. There's so many star and constellation correlations within just ancient architecture in general. But yes, this concept of Orion and its correspondence to at least these three main pyramid sites around the world is really amazing. The other thing, if you look at, I was curious because the Great Pyramids are aligned perfectly with true north. It's off by, Graham Hancock likes to say, 3/60ths of a degree. Most people say within like less than 1/15th of a degree. But also, if you take into account that that was built a while ago, would that actually be even closer? Who knows? So anyways, I looked up, are the Teotihuacan pyramids aligned with north? No, they are like 16-ish degrees east of north, but this is because they built it so that the sun is in a certain spot during certain solstices, which makes sense. I think that's just so amazing in general how certain sites are built. So on solstices and equinoxes, the sun hits it a certain way. That is just like mind-boggling to me. So then of course I search, are the Xi'an pyramids aligned with north? Generally, yes. There's so many pyramids there. It's not just three main ones, like there's more around it, but the fact that Some of them are literally the same exact layout as Teotihuacan, as Giza, as Orion's Belt, as a circuit board. It's not a coincidence. Like, somebody designed this for a certain purpose, for certain reasons. Anyways, yes, most of them are aligned less than a single degree of true north, but then some of them deviate about 8 to 14 degrees to the west, and this is because of like a pole star at that time, they think. Maybe another reason. I think it aligns with Polaris when taking into account the precession of the equinoxes, the shifting of Earth's axes. So now let me just drop this knowledge bomb that is probably obvious if you're researching where main pyramids around the world are located. You will see that Teotihuacan, Mexico, Giza Plateau in Egypt, and Xi'an, China, all of these three main pyramid sites are aligned like Orion's belt. And I said in my last video that Giza is obviously like the center of Earth's land masses, okay? So ley lines are gonna form here. And if you didn't know, Alfred Watkins, he coined this term in 1921, over 100 years ago. People have been known about ley lines, okay? And even that term in general is not new. It's not some new age thing. Sure, if you want to say within the last 100 years, sure, but people used to call this different terms. The Chinese used to call this dragon paths. The Celts used to call this fairy paths. Native Americans called them spirit lines. Druids called them mystical lines. Aboriginals in Australia said they were dream lines or song lines, which gets into vibrational frequencies and things. And in the United Kingdom, they were referred to as old straight tracks. People noticed that certain things, certain natural land masses, mountains, hills, things like this, were in lines. There's the St. Michael line, where there's churches every few miles on the more feminine part of this line that are called churches of Mary, like for Mary Magdalene. And then there's churches kind of the other way, a certain distance from each other, on the more masculine line that are churches of usually St. Michael or St. George. But there's churches on this ley line in this area of Europe. Just one example that I was researching that I found really interesting, because I'm kind of skeptical to this whole ley line thing. I understand the energetics that yes, there's definitely certain energy points on Earth. I have videos on that, and they are laid out in kind of this ley line-like shape. So yes, I definitely get it. But also, these more minor ley lines, like obviously if you draw lines from here to here to here to here, lines are going to cross all over. Anyways, we're going to get more into ley lines in the future, because if you look at where these pyramids are, you could say there's some ley lines between main ones. You could also say it might look kind of random, but if you draw enough lines, it's not random. If you take into account not just pyramids, but mountains, spiritual architecture built in the ancient world, they are clearly on these certain paths. If you take into account UFO sightings, alien abduction stories, they also happen to be on ley lines. So that begs the question as to, were these pyramids used for certain technology? Yes, obviously some kind of advanced technology that we have forgotten or what have you, but these UFOs might be kind of powered by them or travel on these ley lines easier. That's just some food for thought for you. It's also interesting to me that Celts say not to build things or interfere with these fairy paths because that's where the spirits travel. You're supposed to leave that sacred area sacred so you can, build sacred things on it possibly, but you're not supposed to really interfere with it in some negative kind of way. But a lot of stadiums and things are also built on these ley lines. Washington, D.C. and other things are built on these ley lines. It's also said that Nikola Tesla's labs, not just the one in Colorado Springs, Colorado, but also the one in Wardenclyffe, New York, were both located on these ley lines. So ley line video to come, star connection to pyramids video to come, pyramids connection to pyramids video to come. But for now, I figured I would just let you guys in on this Orion connection with the pyramids, and maybe you learned a little something more about it than you already knew before. So I appreciate you guys so much. I hope you have an awesome week. Peace.